Leadville, the podcast for the 100-mile mountain bike race, presented by Shimano. It is Season 9, Episode 2 of the show that breaks down, builds up, gets you ready, and freaks you out for the highest, hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country. I'm Michael Hottie, Hottie to most.
And I'm Fatty, and I am no longer freaked out. What I am is interested in the stories of how everyone's day went. Honestly, it is what I love more than anything about racing.
Mm-hmm. Hey, same crew this time, folks. All four of us here, the same folks you heard in the pre-race show. So that means Nate Whitman is back, and Nate just clocked his, 24 finishes for you, Nate?
24 finishes, one more buckle to the count.
That's awesome. Do you just throw them in a drawer at this point? What do you do with them, Nate?
I've got a vision for the most amazing framed display ever for all of my hardware. And maybe when I'm in my 70s, I'll finally get there and actually do it.
Anyway, Melisa Rollins, 2024 and 2026 Leadville champ, current XCM national champ, former Leadville bartender, and Leadville nanny. We're learning all kinds of things about you that people did not know in this show. But I do, because you're my stepdaughter. Melisa, welcome.
Last unofficial finisher of the 2018 Leadville 100 run. So,
Yes.
I like that one.
That is something. We won't go into this too far, but do you ever come up the boulevard without thinking about that run? I don't. I always think about that. I'm like, it is the slowest I have ever come up the boulevard. Half a mile per hour.
I actually don't think I thought about it this last time.
Well, you had a lot going on.
I only had one brain cell, and it was preoccupied. So.
Yeah. Well, honestly, that is still the dominant memory I have of the boulevard. Will always be you hurting so bad as you, went from looking like a 29-hour finisher to being a 31-hour finisher of the Leadville 100 the Leadville 100 run, which, as we are recording, just think there are all these people in Leadville right now who are going to have a terrible night's sleep about to do the final in the Leadville 100 run. Oh, that is an event.
Town is hopping with the runners, and it's always such an interesting culture shock if you actually, as a mountain biker, if you stick around and see the runners coming into town and kind of catch their vibe and their mojo and their nervous energy. It's a very different feel from the bike, but it's really cool. And if you ever get a chance to do it, I'd highly recommend it. Town is hopping down there.
What do you mean? Do what, Nate? Run the thing? I'm not going to run that thing.
Just take it
hang
all
out,
in,
right? Go ahead, Nate. You line up there tomorrow morning. You run that thing, and you tell us what it's all about.
I wouldn't make it 1.5 miles.
One of my very, very favorite memories of the Leadville 100, the Lead Challenge, was watching my wife, Lisa, as she absolutely just demolished that. And the prep she did for that. Watching you, Melisa, as you did that run, so many years ago. What year was it that you did the Lead Challenge?
2018.
2018. So wow, it closing in on a decade. That is so wild. But yeah, like Nate says, watching the runners do that thing, it's inspiring in a completely different way. And Hottie, you have crewed so many times. I think you would really have a lot of fun crewing the 100 run sometime. It is the amount of logistics that comes in for crewing for a runner, very, very different, and I would say a lot more stressful because people come in shattered in an entirely different level.
And there's all that lull time in between, too, where you could easily just fall asleep and not be paying attention, and next thing you know, game on. You're supposed to be doing your jobs.
Absolutely. It's Melisa. You said that the 100 run is unfinished business for you. I'm going to raise my hand right now and say I am right there to crew for you when you are ready to take that on again and get that monkey off your back.
I don't know. Did I say that?
You have said that before. I think you said that on the show.
Oh, yeah, I don't claim that anymore.
That is fine. But if you were ever to do it, you know how amazing of an event that is. So good luck to anyone who is listening to this show who is also either crewing for or is a runner. Then we know that there are a number of lead challenge racers who are doing this, and they've got in front of them, I think, an altered course as well, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
They're running over
Did I see
Kevens,
that?
in fact.
Yeah, that they run over Kevens.
Yes.
That's
You got
crazy.
that right, Melisa. They're going to run over Kevens. I think it's outbound, and then they actually make the right down to May Queen and make a left at May Queen and then come north along the lake. I think that's the route I remember seeing. And then I kind of don't recall from there. But ultimately, they end up on their normal course like the bike did this year and then double back. So, yep, Kevens for them this year. Interesting.
I've taken us down the first of what I assume are going to be 100 cul-de-sacs for this podcast. See, I'm guessing that since this is like our second and last episode of the season, people are going to be okay if it goes slightly over an hour, and I'm just going to let it roll. I'm just going to let it roll. I just want to hear everyone's stories from the day. Hey, Hottie, I normally see you at least a couple of times during the day. I didn't see you the whole day. I have no idea what you did, except for you did some really cool reporting on different racers in the Marginal Gains podcast. Love that. Melisa, I saw you for half a second. I wasn't even sure it was you because I was kind of surprised that there was not a moto ahead of you at the moment that I saw you. I was looking for a moto, but you were on your way down Columbine and the motos didn't peel in front of you until at the bottom of Columbine, which makes sense when I think about it. And Nate, I look for you all the time, and I think I was maybe looking for the wrong color of jersey. So everyone, all three of you, I don't know what you did. I'm going to go with Hottie. Let's hear about your day. What'd you do, man?
What did I do? I had crewing duties, of course. And Mrs. Hottie and I, by the way, Veronica, my wife, deserves a lot of credit for being out there as well. Our primary job was Nate and Melisa, and then we also adopted Trekkie, Brendan Johnston, part of the Live Giant crew. So we ran out at Lost Canyon. They actually, in the end, bifurcated or split the Citizen Racer feed zone, which was on the main road, and the Pro Racer feed zone, which they put on the double track. All the racers are probably aware of that now as they are heading towards Lost Canyon. All of a sudden, they come through the smallish feed zone, and that was the pros. And so what I did is shuttle back and forth between the two because Nate was taking his feeds off Lost Canyon. And of course, Melisa and Brendan Johnston were on the double track there approaching Lost Canyon or just after if you're inbound. And so we got out there early. I did not go to the start line this year. We just didn't want to risk it. We thought the race is going to be so fast. Why get caught up in anything while we're fussing around at the start line? Let's just go straight down to Lost Canyon and kind of figure things out there. So that's what we did. We ran straight to Lost Canyon. We left probably not long after the pro field left. And we ran down there. We actually popped up your pump up there, Fatty. We kind of put the finishing touches on your setup there. And then I went over to the double track and met up with Paige, who is Melisa's mechanic. She also wrenches for the Giant racers, Cole Patton and Brendan Johnston. Terrific lady. By the way, if there is somebody who exemplifies what Fatty and I professed on this show many, many times, and that is wear a bright color in the feed zone, Paige had it down. She was wearing what I would call San Francisco Giants orange because I'm a big Giants fan. There's this bright orange shirt and hat. I mean, she stood out, right, Melisa? She's like, you could see her probably from well down the double track as you approached.
Yeah. I mean, thank goodness, because like I said, back to the single brain cell. I couldn't see anything else out there.
Right. So Paige was there in her bright orange kit and her tools and various wheels for wheel changes should the racers need them. And then my job was to run backup. If a racer missed a bottle, I was going to be further down the feed zone than Paige and be able to hand up a bottle. I didn't have to do anything because Paige was so good. She handed up bottles perfectly. The best I got out of the whole experience was there's this terrific shot, I think Escape Collective got it, of Melisa going by me and me offering a bottle, but Melisa instead, I think, doing something with your arm warmers as you go by. It's a perfect shot. We're both in the frame. I showed the picture later to Melisa, said, I'm going to cherish this photo forever because it's me and her and the eventual champion and her in her resplendent red, white, and blue kit and the bike going by. And I thought, that's perfect. That really summed up a lot of the day there. And so what I did is I essentially I think I made 4 trips in total. Yeah, 1, 2, 1 back, 1, 2, 1. Yes, yeah, 4 trips in total back and forth between the 2 feed zones. I would just retreat back to Lost Canyon, wait for Nate as he would come around and feed him. Now, we had this terrific piece of equipment, and there was actually a lot of good things happening in the feed zones. Cell service was much better this year. And I talked to Chemo afterwards. He said, oh, yeah, we kind of upgraded temporarily at least, cell service down at Lost Canyon. People were actually streaming the race in the pro feed zone and in the Citizen Racer feed zone. So they were watching in real time, Melisa doing her thing and Keegan and that group working as well. So that was a lot of fun. But Nate, prior to the race, handed me a 2-way radio. Now, Nate also had a feeder in Twin Lakes Dam. And Kevin, who was the feeder, and I could talk to each other over a 2-way radio, which was terrific. I mean, it was a tool I think we're going to recommend in the future if you can afford it. And according to Nate, they're not that expensive. And the range was good enough, too. I could hear Kevin from the dam. I think he was in the Mountain View parking lot, if I'm not mistaken, and then me at Lost Canyon. And so I got Kevin to also tell me, when the pro men came through, when Melisa came through, when Nate came through, and he could give me a heads up, and that ride over to Lost Canyon is not very long. Terrific piece of equipment to have on hand to share notes. And then I would do the reverse. When they came down off the mountain, I was giving him a heads up as riders were coming through. So excellent piece of equipment to stay on top of things. If all else fails, if the timing mats fail, if Chronotrack goes down, if the feed is no good from the live stream, the 2-way radios were terrific. So that was my day. The day was quite fast because, again, the riders rode so fast. Once Nate came down off Columbine, Mrs. Hottie and I doubled back to the finish line where I started, peppering pros with the questions I was looking for answers for. A lot of that show, by the way, folks, if you want to go listen to it, it's very tech focused. It's not so much about the race itself, but I was out after specific things about 32-inch wheels being in the race. That was kind of the debut for the Ventum bike. I thought that was an interesting story. I talked to John Gaston at length about the race at the front with the pro men's race. I had an interview with Paige Onwiller about her bike setup beforehand. So that's really the focus of that show. It's a lot more tech focused. No surprise. That's where Hottie's brain tends to drift. But Marginal Gains is very much that way too. So that's what we did. So that was the day in a nutshell. It was, again, successful. I don't think we missed a feed. Everything came off without a hitch. I am very interested to hear what you 3 think of the feed zones. There was a lot of changes in those feed zones. We saw more cones out. We saw a center line of cones, both down the double track and up Lost Canyon. And I understand that was the situation at Outward Bound and at Pipeline, at Twin Lakes Dam as well. There was a lot of tape up, too, a lot of race tape up. It was kind of separating feeders from racers. So, for standing there statically, it seemed to work okay. I wasn't a fan of the double track feeds because it was very hard to see there, but otherwise it seemed orderly. But I wasn't on a bike going anywhere from 15 to 30 or 40 miles per hour. You guys will have to tell that side of the story, what you thought of the hand-ups and the feeds and so forth. So that was my day in a nutshell, Fatty.
Love it. Well, let's stay on we'll get to everyone's stories, but I think your question about how did the feed zone approach work is a good one. I would love to just go around the table on that. Real quickly, mine, where Melisa and Nate both represent the fast end of the field, I was right probably in the sweet spot of the middle of the field. And for me, it worked just fine in the moment. So I just got crewed twice in the Lost Canyon, and it worked out just fine. I just stopped by the tape, swapped camelbacks or USWE packs for me, and continued on. It was never an issue. The day before, it was quite confusing, just because it seemed like the number of changes that were happening to who went where and when was changing fast and in real time. And I was worried that I had not got something right, that I had missed a communication, or that other people who were around me wouldn't get it right, and that there could be confusion. In practicality, there were no issues for me. I was able to find my crew quickly. They were able to hand stuff off to me quickly, and I went on my way. Melisa, I mean, you were at the pointy end of the race. How did the different aid stations, including, as far as I can tell, a surprise change for where you would be crewing the day before the race? How did all that go for you?
Yeah, surprisingly went really well, but I think along with your sentiment, like the pros also were quite confused about where the feed stations were going to be. Like, for example, Cole had completely planned on his family being outward bound, which was not going to be an option. I'm glad that that was sorted beforehand because that would not have gone well. But yeah, I mean, as far as safety went, the cones I think were pretty valuable. I kind of always was going through the feed zones with only like a couple of other riders with me, so I think I had maybe a little bit different of an experience. But I mean, even heading back, the most congested area was coming back through Lost Canyon when
Mhm.
most of the age group riders were on their way up Columbine. Uh, It it was really cool actually because it was just like a line of people and a lot of cheering and for a long time, all the way until Twin Lakes almost. It was a conga line of people cheering and yelling and screaming, and it was a really exciting point in the race for me because I was chasing, and it it was actually really cool because people were giving me time gaps to
Mhm.
Cecily, because at that point I was in second, and people were giving me time gaps, which to me I was like, "Oh, people like, if someone's giving me a time gap, that means that they saw Cecily and that they started counting to see like, so that they could let the next person know," which in my mind, I was like, "They knew it would be me." But but no, I thought that was really cool, and it was a really different experience than the last time I was leading the race, or last time when Kate was quite a bit further ahead than I was, and
How so?
um, I think it was just more exciting for the spectators. Maybe like they just saw like zoom, and then 20 seconds later zoom, and
Mhm.
like I think I could feel that in the cheers. And I mean, maybe I'm just a little bit more well known than I have been in years past, and there was so many people that screamed my name. So cool, and I am so thankful to every single person that cheered for me out there. I definitely didn't respond to a single person. I didn't not even sure I saw anyone. I didn't see faces, I saw bodies, and I had one mission out there, but anyway, back to the feed stations.
You stood out pretty good in the stars and stripes. That's easy to spot at speed, so that was huge. That's great news.
That was my tactic the whole time. Except Eldon just said he wasn't sure if he saw me.
I was expecting to see more than just your shoulders is the reality.
Oh.
So, I mean, yeah, when I can see the red, white, and blue, then yes, but I saw you basically in the first half mile of the climb of
Mm,
Columbine. And that is one place where you were actually in the shade. And so it was a little bit darker. And so, yeah, I saw Cecily come down and people were saying, was that the first woman? And I said, well, there's no moto. And, so I did not think that it was
mm.
Cecily. I thought that it had to be someone else. But I was confused. But then I saw you and I was like, no, I think that's Melisa. And I mean, I
Mm.
did see like a star on a shoulder and, the dark feed helmet. And then that was it. And boom, and you were gone. So
Here's an
I
interesting
knew.
little experiment. Melisa, when did you first see the front of the men's race as you're going up Columbine? Same for Nate. When did you first run the front of the men's race? And Eldon, when did you see them?
I think I saw them at the cabin or
At
so.
the
So like
Okay.
uh, maybe 2.5 miles from the top, or 2 miles from the top.
Okay.
That's about where I saw them last year. So yeah.
And by the way, folks, that's the new Melisa is the QOM on Columbine, and she was she is faster than several of the well-known men going up that mountain. So just put that in your head and marinate for a second. Nate, when did you see the pointy end of the men's race?
I saw Keegan go by at what I would consider just prior to, say, the midway point of my Columbine climb. So I was still in the trees, and I definitely recognized him right away with the World Championship jersey, the white, the long sleeve skin suit. I cheered him on, and then it was a pretty quick progression. Obviously, they're descending so fast, and I'm going uphill, so the time gaps are exaggerated. They come at you faster than maybe if you were standing on the side stationary with a stopwatch. But about halfway point up the Columbine climb. And then I saw the front end of the women's race higher than that. So remembering that the women started 10 minutes behind the elite men's field, I started in the Gold Corral, which would have been 20 minutes behind the women's elite field. And I saw Cecily, then I saw Melisa, and hopefully Melisa heard me cheering, although there were probably a lot of people a little bit higher up than that. Third coming down was Sarah Lang. And then fourth at that point was Lauren Stevens. Interestingly, I saw both Sarah and Lauren in the small part of Upper Columbine where we are not head-on traffic. So I'm up what I consider high riders right, up that really horrible off-camber dirt pitch, and I'm looking down over my left shoulder about 50 to 100 feet below in that rocky canyon. For that brief moment, there's the split, and I was able to see Sarah, but I was also able to see that Lauren was hot on her heels. And then if you piece together the race dynamics from that point on, Lauren did pass her, and then they regrouped down at Twin Lakes.
And just for context, Nate is you're about as fast as, say, a mid-pack female pro. Was that fair to say?
Yes, give or take.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought. Okay. All right, Fatty, where did you see the pointy ends?
I will remember it because it was a surprise, and it was sort of a bad surprise because I was in the way when I saw Keegan and the group. Right as after you come through Twin Lakes, so much further back than these two, I had come through Twin Lakes, and then there is a pretty tough climb for a few minutes, and then it pinches into a point there is a very steep little climb, and you can't see who is coming from the other direction because they are also coming up the other end of that steep, short pitch. And I was about 90% of the way up that steep, sharp pitch when suddenly there was Keegan, and then he was with, in the last few years, it has been Keegan and then minutes. But this time it was Keegan and a group of 6 or so, right?
Yeah.
And then I got down to the other side and saw Brendan and was super excited to see him. So his was one name that I was able to shout out, and I think that he saw who I was. I'm not sure. Let's talk a little bit about just what our days were like. We heard a little bit from Hottie. Nate, tell us about your day.
Yeah, happy to jump in. It was a great day, and in the days since the race, when I've retold the stories or folks have congratulated me, I just can't stop smiling. And I can't think of any more descriptive phrases other than I had a great day. It was so enjoyable. I really just loved it. All positivity all the way around. And that goes both for like my preparation, my buildup, my training, how I felt that I did on race day in terms of my results and my tactics, but also in terms of the vibe from the community, the racers, everybody testing out this new course. It was just a really uplifting day, and I had a great time, and it was a great reminder of why I keep coming back year after year. But I started at 6:30 a.m. in the front of the Gold Corral. One of the facets of the separation of the elite fields from the Gold Corral is that the Gold Corral is actually relatively small, right? If you think about what is the number of folks that are fast enough to qualify for gold, but also are not in elite. I don't know. I didn't do a head count, but 50 guys, mostly guys. There might have been a few women also in that front. I was pleased to see I got a tiny little bit of camera time in the live broadcast because I found myself on the front row of the Gold Corral right up against the timing strip. And they didn't do much coverage, but they did pan back to the start, and I got to see myself roll out. So that was fun. Couple thoughts in terms of the pacing and the tactics and the way that the day played out. Everything was quite smooth. I noted when I did watch back the full video broadcast that we were right when we predicted that that Turquoise Lake descent after Carter Summit had some sneaky, sharp bends with tight
Yeah.
radiuses. I forget the specific athlete, doesn't matter, but one of the pro men definitely overshot that one on the video and found himself out to the left in the brush. That was interesting. Um, I did sense, again, in line with some of our predictions, at least the way that the men's elite played out. And I'm excited to hear Melisa talk about how the women's race was different there in that first 30 to 60 minutes, St. Kevens and Carter and Turquoise and Outward Bound. But in my race, I definitely sensed that the number of guys that sort of took a little bit of a gamble and pushed their pace on St. Kevens to try to make sure that they got over the top with a quick group, it was higher. The group going down the Turquoise Lake descent that I was with was probably the first 15 to 20, maybe even a little bit more than 20 guys. Whereas in prior years, going down Turquoise Lake in the opposite direction and heading for Sugarloaf, if I was in that front pack, it was usually more 10 guys, 8 guys. So that was some of my sensation. We talked about the feed zones, and I want to chime in there. I will say I applaud the race organization. I applaud Lifetime for really trying to respond to feedback, trying to take steps proactively to evolve and put things in place. And I will say that there were moments where, particularly coming down from Columbine in the Lost Canyon aid station, where I did feel the level of safety was higher. And Hottie, I was laughing, but I did have to take that right-handed bottle from you at probably something between 20 and 30 miles an hour, which that might not have been super safe. But in terms of the cross traffic, it felt really nice. So I do applaud the organization. I think they'll learn and continue to evolve it. For the first time in as long as I can remember, I did miss my feed at Outward Bound. And one of the elements that was in place was sort of the, I don't know, caution tape, race tape. There's sort of a taped line. And I think that had an impact that was hard to anticipate until you're in the moment on race day. But it made it a little bit harder for crew to sort of look up trail, look up course and find their racer. And it also made it harder as a racer to find the crew. And I think all of the crew was kind of pinned up against that piece of tape. And I simply just missed my feed. And luckily, my crewing plan and hydration strategy kind of bakes in the occasional miss. So I wasn't panicked, but I did make my way all the way over to Twin Lakes Dam on the one bottle that I started with at the start line. I'll fast forward to the end, and then maybe we can hit some of the fun stories as we get back and as we hear Melisa's story. But I was really thrilled with my performance. It was my first year as 50 plus, so I turned 50 this past fall. It was my first year as a 50-year-old in the 50 to 59. I landed third on the podium, which was fantastic. And I felt that, my day had gone basically about as good as I could have hoped for, and was really thrilled with the race day and the entire summer building up to it.
That is fantastic. I am obviously, I'm ordering people on purpose. But I'm saving Melisa for last. So I'm keeping people here to hear from the champ. I'm going to be real brief. I had the hardest day I have had in Leadville in 2 decades. I am going to say I haven't been able to ride more than once or twice per week since July. I have a big talar dome lesion, which makes it so it's real hard for me to walk, and riding is rough. So I was happy to finish it all. And I think that is not super different from a lot of our listeners and from a lot of the 1,800 people who are lining up to do this race. That it was kind of, I guess, interesting, scary, to have the challenge of, am I going to be able to do this thing today? So I was writing from that perspective. Along the way, I had an amazing time. Really a social experience unlike I've had in a long, long time there. I wasn't thinking about introducing myself to every rider as I did this race, but I had put duct tape on my USWE packs along the just saying my name and which direction I was going to make it easy for my crew to give me the correct USWE pack for the 2 times that I would be seeing them. And as a result, everyone was like, oh, it's Fatty going up Columbine. And as a result, a lot of people said, hey, Fatty, keep going. That was nice. That was really nice. That includes Nick Legan of Shimano, who said, hey, this is my first Columbine. And he and I talked about podcasting. I encouraged him to keep doing that Funbound podcast. I really like the show that they've been doing. I would like them to keep going. Told him that I have an idea for a new show. He's like, I'm all ears. Give Dustin and me a call. And toward the second half of the race, I was so bonked. Riding once or twice a week, it turns out, is not good enough to keep you in good fitness. I was just, starting at mile 60. I was just slow pedaling and doing the very best I could. Lots of people came by me because I was slowing down so badly. They were giving me lots of encouragement, saying, thanks for the show. And I was caught in that weird place where I wanted to be appreciative of their appreciation, but I'm having to express my appreciation from very far back in the pain cave. So it was rough. Hottie and I have said for a long time that this race is an eating and drinking competition. And I did some smart and some real stupid things in eating and drinking this year. First of all, the day started cool, and I didn't feel like I needed a lot to drink. And so I got to mile 40 to Lost Canyon, where I saw my wife, and she says, you literally have not had anything to drink. And that was correct. I did the first 40 miles without touching a bottle. Is that smart? Very, very, very much not so. But it's how it was. I wasn't feeling like I needed to drink. When I did try drinking, I realized I had made a terrible rookie move. I had brought bottles that I thought were the kind that I'm used to and that I like, but they were new, and the manufacturer had changed the valve, and I could not get anything out of those bottles. I had to work so hard to drink the entire day. The result, over 100 miles, I drank 3 bottles. That is not enough. So I paid a price. My USWE food experiment worked out great. People may have seen I did this thing where I put all of my gels in the USWE pack instead of in the back of my jersey. That was back when I was planning to single speed, and it is hard to reach into your jersey pocket when you're on a single speed, because anytime you're climbing, you're standing or you're for sure using both hands. So I thought, eating through a tube would work great. Turns out that worked out pretty well. I'm going to keep experimenting with that. Might try it again when I am able to come back to the single speed after I heal up a little bit. And then finally, I will just say, as an Orange Corral person, I think that for the typical rider, the Orange Corral is just the sweet spot of the race. It is people who are not shooting for a sub-9, and so they aren't hyper fixated on a time, but they are people who have somehow gotten themselves into a position where not finishing is also probably not on the radar. So these are people who are in the fun part of the race, I will say. And that was my experience the whole day. Even at the beginning of climbing Kevens, it wasn't crowded. Everything was going well. People were polite. People were energized. And it was just a great thing. If you can get into the Orange Corral, get into the Orange Corral. That is what I will say. So in the end, I got a 9:15, which on the traditional course would be a really good time, all things considered. I felt like I had done maybe, I felt like I do when I am at a 10:45 level. I've done this race often enough that I kind of know how I roll. And I felt more like a 10:45. So, Melisa, you were exactly an hour faster. I would say that this course, for people like me who are further back and who aren't great on pavement, this course gave me an hour and a half, I think.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure how my time would compare. I was thinking it was more like 45 minutes, but um,
I
who
think that
knows?
you have a good sense of your level of effort as well. I mean, how cooked did you feel compared to when you were going against Kate last year?
Full cook. Full cook.
You were well done.
Yeah, I keep ending up having to race up the boulevard, and that leads to full cook. So,
I would
yeah,
echo the
the
full cook on my side. Couple things that after the fact I could think back on how I had chosen to race. It's funny, at least 4 times I had the realization over and over, "Oh, yeah, you're not going up power line at the end of this thing." Like, I would remember it, and then I would forget it, and I would remember it, and then I would forget it. But the 2 things that I did slightly differently, I spent myself more and earlier trying to hang with groups. I mean, I just did. I made that calculation that that would be to my best benefit in terms of finishing time, in terms of placement. I also spent more time up out of the saddle as part of those efforts and the Turquoise Lake climb and other places where maybe on the traditional course, either because of the extra climbing or because I was on pavement, I would have stayed seated. And so I was just as cooked. And I swear I felt actually maybe a little bit more dusted at the end of Saturday's race than I might have in prior recent years.
Yeah, I was cooked too. I was cooked beyond belief. Betty.
I'm
Just
sure.
cooked. Running back and forth between feed zones, cooked. Yeah.
Yeah, you put in some miles yourself. So I want to put forth a theory on the apples to oranges comparison, I think, for the traditional course versus the 2026 course. And I think that it's not that one is harder or easier than the other, but that they favor different kinds of riders. For someone like me who does not have much, if any, experience racing on pavement, racing on flat, it was just that kind of riding, that part of the course was really, I won't say more difficult, but it was harder mentally for me. Nate, I mean, well, both Nate and Melisa, and probably Hottie, I think you three have a lot more experience in other courses, certainly on gravel, than I do. It's just not something that I was good at, and I felt like I was suffering disproportionately on flat. And, I am at my best when the pitch turns up steep and, I can turn off my brain and just kind of grind through it. And there just wasn't as much of that this year.
I can talk to the Turquoise Lake climb inbound and also curious to hear Melisa's perspective. I'm just not as familiar with that. And, 24 buckles and a lot of time here in town pre-riding and training on course. I've got dozens, maybe even into the hundreds of reps on Turquoise Lake in the other direction, or on Sugarloaf, or on Columbine, you name it. I probably had maybe 2 runs of Turquoise Lake pavement inbound prior to race day, and I found it mentally and emotionally anguishing. It's not a steady climb, so you sort of try to find your climbing rhythm, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, I should be down in more of an aero position. I'm going 22 miles an hour. I had at various points groups up in front of me that seemed to be just dangling right there where I could get to them, but I couldn't. And at the as you approach the top, there are curves, there are turns, there are changes in pitches. It reminds me a little bit of like the first few years I ever came to Leadville, and the power line sensation was like false summits. I've got to be near the top. This has got to be the top. There had to be at least 3 times I thought I was going to see vehicles and volunteers waving me to turn right into the woods at Carter Summit, and it wasn't it. And I had to pedal for another 5 minutes. So I found the Turquoise Lake inbound sort of mentally agonizing, and I did not really enjoy it, but I got over it.
Yeah, I would. I think I would also agree with that. the 20 minutes spent up that climb were probably some of the worst 20 minutes of my whole life. That was it was really, really hard. But I think because there was no power line, that is why that was so hard, is because we could. And it went into the sort of how my race ended up playing out, which we haven't exactly gotten into. But I full gas raced up that climb, which I've never done that at the end of, at least not for that duration at the end of Leadville, sort of at that like level. And yeah, I think the entire course change, at least for my race, completely changed the dynamic and how we were able to race it, which, yeah, apples to oranges. I think it's really hard to compare this course to the last course because it made it a lot easier in some ways, and it made it a hell of a lot harder in some ways.
Sure.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you are not getting away from this podcast without going into ridiculous detail on your day, Melisa. Give us a second-by-second blow of your day. Let's go into that.
So I guess we should begin with the first 15 minutes of my race, which were spent dodging puddles, which I don't know if you guys knew about in your race, but I didn't really know about them in mine. We had gotten a lot of rain the night before. And because there's so much nerves and we kind of started, the women's race kind of started slow, I think there was a lot of tension. And I mean, when there's puddles, there's wheel crossing, or there's the nervous jarring to the left, to the right, like you divert from your line. And because of that, there were a couple of crashes. One was pretty close to the first touch of dirt, and then again just before we started up Kevens. And the latter one I happened to be a part of. I cannot tell you what happened. Even watching back videos of the crash, I have no idea what happened. I just suddenly am perpendicular to the field and underneath a couple of ladies and bikes. All I know is that I was in pretty good position. I was top few wheels, and then all of a sudden I was on the ground pretty freaking hard.
And I want you to go into that a little bit because, I mean, you are still coming back from an injury. I like that you haven't ever like pointed a finger at a racer, because this seems like it was, it's greasy ground and there's mud puddles and early nerves. So you're not pinning this on anyone, but the fact is a lot of people were in this tangle of bikes and racers all of a sudden, and you got hurt.
Yeah.
So tell us about, I mean, from hitting the ground to working your way back through the race.
Yeah, I think I've been doing this long enough to know that you can point fingers at people. It doesn't really matter. I've been the cause of crashes. I've been in crashes that shouldn't have happened. I mean, they say it's bike racing. That's a cliche statement, but it really is. It just happens. And you can be at the right place at the right time. You can be at the wrong place at the wrong time. You can be, it doesn't matter. So at the end of the day, I went down. Somebody ran over my neck. I have
Holy cow.
tire marks on my back.
Well, wait a second here. Let's do an autopsy, or not an autopsy, but we could do a little science. We could pick up the tread pattern, and then we'd know who was responsible for this, and we could, I'm just saying,
No,
little retribution.
I don't think that would still be inconclusive. Just because someone ran over me doesn't mean that it was their fault.
I know a Conti from a Pirelli, from a Vittoria. So just show me the tracks, and we can figure it out. Go ahead. Sorry.
I would like to add for the listeners that if you are interested in this, if you watch the full length, I'm not sure about the edited. If you watch the full length broadcast that Lifetime did, day of race, it didn't catch the crash in the sort of gory, detailed level, but it very much did catch the aftermath and the piles of bikes. And one thing that I was impressed with specifically for Melisa is the calm that you exhibited in that moment. You very clearly see Melisa picking herself up off the ground, detangling her bike in the Stars and Stripes, kind of doing a quick body check, and then probably most importantly, very calmly assessing the bike, the bars. Had the bars gotten twisted? Did the brake lever get twisted? And in a more panicked moment, things can go bad. You could break your chain if you start pedaling too anxiously without checking where it's sitting on the cog or if it came off the front chain ring. So I thought that was a real defining facet, not only of the early part of the day, but really of the entire women's race. And I know you'll get to it, Melisa, but later we see Cecily Decker and Sarah Lang off the front. And I couldn't help but wondering how things might have played out differently had that crash not occurred, or had you not found yourself literally, I think, last rider getting back up and running before the steepest part of the beginning of the St. Kevens climb. So that was fantastic.
Well, thank you. I don't think I'm always chill in stressful moments, but yeah, I just have been through so much this year. It just seems like, sure, of course this happened. What's next? Actually, what was next was that when I was fixing my bars, the shifter had to run across the top of my top tube, and it ruined my paint. And I was like, dang it! Guess I get a new bike. No, I'm just kidding. We're gonna have to fix that one. Yeah, I don't know. The initial thought was, gosh, maybe I'm only riding to the first speed zone. I was just taking it minute by minute, moment by moment, and I hopped back on my bike. I knew my back kind of hurt. I hit my elbow on the ground, which is the broken one. It was hurting. My hip hurt. My
Your
head
knee
kinda
looked pretty gory.
hurt. I looked down and my knee was like gushing blood. So I was like, yeah, that was a pretty bad one. But again, I got up and I was like, nothing's broken, so I'll just roll. And then I started going, and it was kind of actually nice that we were rolling right into Kevens. Not nice that I could see, I mean, literally I couldn't see the front of the race anymore. It was gone. There was, I didn't see the front of the race for 4 hours after
So
that.
no one held up for you. That was perceived really as an opportunity.
Oh, no. I think that the race would have gone there regardless of who went down in what crash or whatnot. I think people had a plan to go hard at Kevens. I think that was pretty universal between all of the pro races, men and women. There just wasn't a lot to dictate any kind of separation except for this climb that I happened to start in last place going up.
But here's a detailed question, Melisa. Is it feasible? Because when you see these types of things happen, in the big, call it Tour de France or Tour de France Femmes, sometimes there are enough cameras and angles that you can discern, hey, the front guys did actually realize there was a crash behind them, and sometimes they have no idea. Did you have a sense whether there were 5, 10, 12 ladies ahead of you that might have been oblivious to the crash behind, or was it of a nature that like everybody would have known? Not that it matters, but I'm just curious because then that sort of plays out. How did it go up St. Kevens, and at what point were you getting which pieces of information about what was happening ahead of you?
I would guess people knew. I was far enough forward that I would guess people knew.
So if a rider was to the front and lucky enough to not get tangled up in it, they were still close enough to know that it had happened.
I mean, I don't know. Can't speak to
Got
it,
it.
but I would guess yes.
Because when you went down, you were in the front.
I was probably third wheel, fourth wheel. Yeah, it wasn't like I was dangling off the back and on a terrible line or something like that. It was kind of at random, unlucky, whatever.
All right. You're back on your bike.
Back on my bike. I'm going along, and I immediately start passing people. And I just had one thought, which was, the race is decided here. You like it. This is when you can make up time. As soon as you summit, you're losing time. on whoever's off the front. Like you're not going to make back time on a descent on the pavement. You're just not.
So you
So
went very quickly from maybe I only make it to the first feed zone to rethinking, here's how I get back into the front of the race.
yeah.
That's a fast transition.
Well, I think somewhere along the way, I felt good, and I just kept picking off riders. Like it went from I was the back of the race, then I was like picking off some U23 riders. Then I was like, is that Sophia? And I like caught Sophia. I was in the group with her, and then I was like, is that Lauren Stevens? Like, and then I was like, I don't think there's that many people in front of me anymore. And at that point, once I reached the summit, it was, I was in a group of 4 and we were riding for third. So,
And who was that group?
And it was me, Lauren Stevens, Haley Perrine, and Alexis Scarda, which I was super happy with. I was like, all of these riders are super competent, super strong. And I think, if anything, at that point, I also knew that Cecily and Sarah were off the front, which those 2 riders are super strong. I knew Cecily would be really motivated, pushing. And I was like, I think I'm in a good group, just got to stay calm. I even asked Lauren Stevens, who is very versed in the road, also really strong, knew she was targeting this race. I asked her somewhere near Pipeline. I was like, so what's the game plan? Like, how are we getting them back? And she just said, keep rolling. And Columbine's really long. So I kind of just tried to keep focused and rolling along. And I was putting in a lot of time in the front. I was happy to pull. I felt good. And yeah, I think somewhere between Kevens and Columbine, my brain went to this place. I don't know if everybody does this. I think that they do. It's like you want to take the easy way out, right? So your brain likes to soften everything, and like it the way that my brain was telling me that it's okay where I was at. It was like, yeah, you crashed. How cool would it be that your story now is like you raced yourself back to third place?
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool. And I sat with that for a while, and I was like, yeah, that would be cool. And then I was like, why is that what I'm shooting for? Why can't I shoot for more? And I think somewhere along the way in between the 2 spots, like before Columbine, I was like, I'm not racing for third today. I'm going to keep trying, and I'm going to race for the win still. And I'm really proud of that. It's really hard. It is really, really hard to go from something attainable and easy, like, I'm in a group for third. It would be really, not easy and attainable, but that seems like pretty attainable that I could maybe get third, to deciding, no, I'm going to chase down. I heard that Cecily had 3 minutes on me. I'm like, I think I'm still going to go for it. And that's when everything changed. And I decided I was going to go as hard as possible in Columbine. Everything was going to be left on Columbine for me.
It's a great reminder of something I find myself saying to other cyclists, that whether I coach or just give guidance or just, sort of telling stories, with all the emphasis on data, watts, FTP, aero drag, this piece of equipment's going to save you 4 watts. It's still a race. It's still human beings. It's still athletes. And therefore, it's so psychological. And I think Melissa's story right now is just such a great example of how that works. And you can let your mindset help you and aid you and drive you and get you through things, or you can let it sabotage yourself. And I think I've always given the advice about Leadville to break it down into bits. And it's almost like any big task in life. Just don't spend too much time thinking about the enormity of the whole thing, soup to nuts. Break it down. And one thing I just thought of, if I had been in Melissa's shoes, that I might have been in the right frame of mind to tell myself, Melisa, if you said on any day, I'm at Twin Lakes Dam, and rider A and rider B have a 3-minute head start on me and have a 3-minute 45-second head start on me. Can I get them? I bet you would have the self-confidence breaking it down in that little segment to say, heck yeah, I'm going to get them. Let's go. Right. But when it's embedded and when it's bracketed by the enormity of the early start, the weather, the cold, the crash, the mud that you had, you can lose sight of it. And I know I let that happen to myself still. And I have to fight those mental tendencies and get my head in the right frame of mind to take it, one climb, one pedal stroke, one aid station, one segment, one group at a time.
I will just add to what Nate said. What you say what you did is probably what a lot of people do, but I think that half of what you did is what most people do. Like you, yes, I am always telling myself the story of the race as the race is happening. And I'm looking for the dramatic angle. And I probably would have come at he worked himself back into contention for the podium and said, there is a good story, and tried to hold on to that. And I don't think that I ever would have thought, or I can gamble and see if there is still a chance at getting to the top of the podium. And that is the shift that I think is uncommon. It's going from the good story to the damn near impossible story. And that's what we're going to get to now. So let's continue on.
Yeah. Like I said, really proud of this. I think that it's hard. It's hard to make that shift because it goes into the uncomfortable. It goes into, you have to have self-confidence. It has to, you have to be willing to gamble. And I was, because up until this point, in my year, I hadn't really had an opportunity to gamble. This was the third race I'd signed up or been able to line up for since I broke my elbow. So it was kind of all or nothing for me.
Because it could have gone the other way, right? You could have launched and blown up and finished in 12th, right? That was a distinct possibility.
Totally. Yeah. But I wasn't thinking about that.
Good.
Fortunately,
that's
that was not
learning.
in my mind.
Yeah.
So I guess the next part of my race was that I made a small separation on that climb you were talking about where you saw Keegan.
Mm-hmm.
And I broke away from Alexis and Haley there with Lauren on my wheel. And I was like, okay, feel pretty good. Let's push it. And pushed it all the way to Columbine. Lauren was still with me. And just got into my groove on Columbine. Felt really, really good. I was not playing games. I wasn't worried about Lauren pulling through. I didn't ask her to. I just wanted to set my pace, and I just tried to believe. And about halfway up, I had just left Lauren and I could see Sarah ahead of me. And at that point, people had given me a gap that she was maybe a minute and a half ahead. So I knew that halfway up Columbine had already made back a minute and a half. And I remember there was a motorbike or a e-bike with Sarah when I could see them, and he pulled off and I passed him. He didn't notice that there was another girl coming. Otherwise, I think he would have maybe been filming it. But I went past him and I was like, it's Cave on. We're like, let's go. I was just pumped. It was really exciting. And I think that fueled me a little bit. So I caught Sarah, about halfway up, and Pastor Sarah and I are friends. We had actually gone on a long pre-ride of the course just like a few days prior. And so when I caught her, I was like, let's go, Sarah. And she hopped on my wheel and we were together for a bit actually, which was cool. And I was like, See, you just needed some encouragement. You just needed some motivation. Sometimes you lose that, you know?
Was this up high on the goat trail, the really steep rocky part at this point, or was it still down below
No, this
on the
was
tree section, that section in the trees?
still in the
Okay.
trees. Like just before we came out of the trees, like there's 2 switchbacks or so. And yeah, once we got to the steep pitch, I'm not sure where I left her. I didn't really look back. I just noticed that I was alone again. And then once I got up to the ridge before the goat track, I could see Cecily, and I started doing time checks, like just based on I'd see her, I'd count how long it would take me, and I could tell I was closing. I didn't think I'd be able to close it by the top unless she really blew up, but I knew that I was about a minute back at the turnaround. And I felt good and I was motivated. And by the bottom of Columbine, I had.
Wait.
I
No,
mean-
I want to know what happens when she goes by you in the opposite direction. Do you acknowledge each other, see each other, ignore each other? What happens? That's a moment right there where she knows she is the hunted and you're the hunted.
I
What
don't think
happens right there?
she knew at all that I was even close. I'm not sure what I did. I would guess that I wooed, like, woo.
Okay, all right.
Because that's what I do, maybe. Or yeah, I don't know. Not sure. That is
There
what
was
I would
no
guess.
real exchange right there, acknowledgement. Hey, what's up? Nothing right there.
Nothing huge. Yeah.
Okay.
And
All
was
But you
was the
saw
gap
each
at
other.
that point?
She saw you, you saw her, right?
Yeah. We saw each. It was on that as you drop down to the cabin, to the turnaround. So we were still on that, and yeah, I was pretty motivated. I was excited. This was going to be
Yeah.
a really exciting race, I think, and I again felt like there was a shot.
From the turn at the cabin, Melisa, you come around, you go counterclockwise, so you're bending toward your left. I'm curious about that 3 or 4 minutes. Did you take anything from any of the volunteers? Did you just bomb around the circle and get going? And what was going through your head in the 3 or 4 minutes that it takes from that point to kind of traverse the ridge and get back down to the descent proper? What were you telling yourself about the descent? What were your goals for the descent? All that going through your head.
Yeah, I took a hand up of water. That was part of my fueling plan because I went pretty light for climbing Columbine. So I had anticipated I would maybe need a little bit before I descended. I had already taken a gel prior to dropping down to the cabin on the rolly bit just at the top. And yeah, I think I sort of noticed that you can lose a lot of time in that upper section if you're not pedaling. So I anticipated that I would sort of view that as the start of the descent. And I would try to make up as much time in that section between like where you come back up to when you start like the proper Columbine descent. Because I ride really well during that, in that sort of terrain where it's kind of rolling rocky. My bike, the Live Peak, is really, really good at rolling over like Chundery rock just like that. So I really wanted to take advantage where I could. I was thinking through that a lot. Like I said, I had already eaten. I was I was ready. I was ready for that descent. And I I feel like I took some calculated risk on the descent. I went the fastest I've ever gone down Columbine, especially the upper part. I think I have the fastest time for that upper part, just to the where it stops getting so technical.
So I want to have you take me into the mind of a pro coming down the wide dirt road part of Columbine, which is where most citizen racers like myself see the pro racers, and we always have the conversation. You once upon a time you had this conversation watching pros down. How do they come down this fast?
I think it's the flow state. That's the only thing that I can relate it to, or that sort of like marinates with me.
Talk about that for a second. I mean, we've heard the word flow state, but I mean, like if I don't know if you can reach back and say, this is how I feel when I am in the flow state. This is what
Yeah.
it is like to be coming down Columbine at 35, 40 miles an hour, faster than I am comfortable going on a road bike on a straight.
Yeah, I think I really reserve these moments for race scenarios, and maybe that's what makes racing so special, is sort of the ability for me to go into this headspace. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I heard hundreds of people yelling my name. I didn't see a single face. I really didn't. I was really locked in, especially to the straightaways. The turns, I always slowed up a bit. It's easy to overcook a turn, especially on Combine. So I was trying to make sure to, respect the traffic coming up and being as safe as possible there. But I'd say for the most part, people were aware that people were coming down, and I didn't feel like I had any close calls with anyone. And yeah, I kind of use my maps on my hammerhead. I'll like glance back and forth to know how long the next straightaway is going to be, so that I can sort of calculate how fast I can take it into, if something is like a little bit blind, how fast I'm able to like continue pulling speed into something. So I'm constantly going back and forth between looking ahead, looking down at my hammerhead, looking ahead, looking down at the map, seeing if like how close I am getting to one of those switchbacks, how much like time I need to shed. I know there's one section halfway down where I like can actually hammer and put down some power, because there's a little bit of a climb, and I always use that section to sort of like recalibrate. We're halfway down. We have only a little bit left. And I always have a sigh of relief when I get to the bottom, where I'm like, okay,
Oh, yeah. We have that in common.
big moment. We made it down Columbine, and we are still on our bike.
That's how I always feel coming down Powerline too, right? So there were fewer of those made it moments in this race, that at least for me. So that is super fascinating. I don't think I ever look at my computer when I am coming downhill in a race situation. I am always, eyes forward. But love that. I mean, that's a very interesting insight. Nate, do you look at your bike computer?
That's such a super pro tip. And it depends on the event, and it depends on the nature of the trail. And by the way, it takes a little bit of experimentation and troubleshooting, optimizing with the tech. It's no different than if you use your iPhone on the dash of your car for directions. Sometimes I use it even when I know where I'm going. I don't need the directions, but it's going to help me read the curvature of the road. And when I do, all I'm looking for is, do I see a straight line or do I see a bent line? And that's all I need to start, prepping my braking decisions. At Leadville, I do not, because 24 years in, like, I don't need it. I know every
you don't need it.
Ripple, every turn, every bend, every angle. But I do that frequently in events that I'm less familiar and in the gravel scene.
Yeah, I think it's handy. I think it's helpful. I mean, when you're going at such speeds, you have to have some kind of bailout, or you have to like kind of be aware of what's coming.
So I'm probably the next person to see you, Melisa, at the feed zone, and I didn't hand you a bottle, but I remember what I yelled. I yelled 45 seconds. That's what you had to Cecily. So
is that what it was?
That's what it was there. It was 45 seconds. If my stopwatch was right, it was 45 seconds as she came through the Lost Canyon feed zone.
Yeah. What's interesting is that is exactly the split that I had to Lauren Stevens last year. She was 45 seconds ahead of me at that spot last year as well. So I kind of knew I ride well. I know how to carry speed. And what's funny is that I caught Cecily in the exact spot I caught Lauren last year. So
which was where?
Just after the Twin Lakes Dam feed station, like the
on the road climb away from Twin Lakes.
Yeah,
Dam,
road climb. Road climb after the final pinch point. Yeah, and it seems like
Any issues getting through that pinch point?
No, everyone. I I feel like either people knew I was coming, or I don't know. I was very, very pleased and impressed with um how people were so kind and generous to pull over for me to come through. It was
Love
really
it.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like everyone was so courteous and cheering, and that was my experience all throughout the day. So, I didn't have a single bad interaction with anyone,
Yep.
um, coming in the opposite direction.
So you
So,
and Cecily are now together, and
yes.
it is just the two of you, really just coming very quickly out of Twin Lakes down.
And the director
right?
Yep.
was smart enough to cut to the catch too. It was actually a very good TV moment or live stream moment, whatever. And they were actually on top of it for that moment, which is great. You always
Yeah.
want to catch those in bike racing. It's harder for those guys. They're trying to cover 2 races, but they caught the catch, which was perfect.
Yes, yes, they caught the catch, and I didn't do anything exciting, unfortunately. I did think about it, but we were about to head into a 25-mile section of flat headwind, and I felt like that would just be dumb on my part, and I was very happy to have Cecily with me for that section. And I think that she and I were both sort of in agreement that, yeah, there would be something exciting later on.
Yeah.
And
But you both made the very smart decision to, hey, together we can ensure that we are the 1 and 2 of this race.
yes. Yeah.
And everyone else can battle for 3rd through 5th, right?
Yes, yes. And
Love that.
I was really happy with that. I mean, Cecily is super strong. I love racing with her. She and I think, are very similar riders and very similar racers. We show our cards, we lay it out there, and we both go for it. And
Yeah.
I
Couple of
respect
boxers.
I respect her so much as an athlete. So when I made the junction to her, I was like, this is awesome. I think this is a big step in this race. I don't think the race has really ever been this close for the women, so I think it's really cool. That
Yeah, I'm
it
sure
even
you thought
happened.
it was awesome. You just caught her.
Right.
She probably thought it was less awesome.
Well, was there an exchange of words at all? Did the
that's
two of you chat it up or talk at all on the ride over to Pipeline and so
Yeah,
forth and
we
beyond?
talked.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah, we talked a lot. I was like, really, I was impressed with her descent on Columbine. She obviously had a great climb. I know she had put in a lot of work up until that point, so I was telling her, great ride. She said she, was feeling good, and
Good.
so I was happy to have a companion out there. And we're friends, so it's all good.
So you
Yeah.
work together, more or less taking turns till you
Totally.
get to the climb up toward Carter. Is that right?
Yes. Yep. We nothing funny happened on that first climb. You make the hard left after once you go up to the lake initially. Nothing funny there. Just riding along. I think we were both kind of looking at each other, just deciding who was going to make the first move.
Oh, yeah.
And
Assessing each other, for sure.
for sure. Yeah. So that was like the majority of that rolling section after you turn right and start coming around the lake. That neither of us were really going very hard. We were just kind of rolling along. And then I made my first move once it started pitching up initially. I think it's like 3 miles to go to the top. I made my first move, and I went pretty hard. I think it was about a 2 or 3 minute effort that I went pretty much full gas, and I was really stoked. I looked back and I had a pretty good gap on Cecily, and I thought for sure that was it. That was going to be it. That was going to be the race, and I was happy. And then the next thing I knew, I looked back and she's on my wheel, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah, it's not going to be that easy.
No, especially
No.
because I was gassed, and she was so strong. She went almost immediately, which was so smart on her end. She
Down to
went
the bone.
almost immediately, left side of the road, attacked me, and I put my head down and I was clawing back. My eyes were bleeding, my ears were bleeding. I had steam coming out of every orifice, and somehow made it back to her wheel. And then she freaking does it again, and I'm crying. No, I'm just kidding. Somehow, again, she gets a gap. I come back, and then I think we had this moment where it's like the last little pitch to the dirt, where we look at each other and we are snails. We're looking. We're like, "Is it who's gonna? You're not gonna. You're not gonna."
Yeah, you've
And
been slugging it out for a bit.
it was painful. And
Mhm.
then I sort of switched gears there. I was like, I love from Crater Summit to the finish. I love it.
Yeah.
I feel like I can, again, just like the top of Columbine, I can carry momentum really well. I really like that section. I know it really well. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to set the pace here. I don't want her attacking me again. So I just set a pretty hard pace, and we were together there's 3 bumps from Crater Summit to the summit. First bump, we're together going pretty hard. Second bump, she goes.
Hmm.
She gets a gap. I was like, again, clawing back, got her back. Stalemate again. And then there's one more pitch. And in my mind, I was like, oh, dang, she was really strong for that one. I don't know. And then, so we make that like really sharp left hand just to that last, like the road goes wide and there's just like a 2-minute pitch. And I started feeling, I don't know, just started feeling it. And she was leading. I came by her. I kind of sensed a teeny bit of a gap. And then I stood up and I looked back and I had a gap, like a gap.
Mhm.
And then we crested over the top and I couldn't hear her anymore. And from then on, I didn't look back much. I started the descent and I was going pretty quick. I felt pretty good. I felt like I was taking a bit of risk, but it was for the win. And I made it to the last, switchback, and I was like, I didn't hear free will. I didn't see her. I was like, oh my gosh, this
Did you
might be
look?
it.
I mean, are you
Yeah.
looking over your shoulder?
Yeah, I looked. Actually, I had passed a pro man who, like, halfway down, which I am sorry to you, pro man. I don't know your name, but I was screaming at you to get out of the way. Well, because he was like trying to pull over, and I was like, "No, you have to get off the road because I am wild right now."
Feral Melisa is on the loose.
So I made the switch back, and I didn't see anyone, and so I knew I had at least a modest gap. And then again, I don't think I looked back until I was off the dirt, and
Mhm.
I didn't see anything again, didn't hear anything again, and then but I was scared. I was like, "I know
Oh,
Cecily's
sure.
strong." And
Well,
so I pushed and pushed and pushed all the way to the finish line, and I really didn't know until I crested just that last bump on the pavement, that I was gonna be able to take it.
Well, I'm glad you explained it here because that's basically what I saw when I went back and looked at the coverage. Because when I got in, the narrative that was kind of being spun was that, Cecily had a flat and that's why she lost. And I thought, oh, okay, well, that happens. It's racing, and maybe Melisa was just there to pick up the pieces and brought the win home. Okay, that's still a win. That's great. Well, when I look back at the coverage, I went, I saw that attack, the one you just described. It was at mile 10 to go. And I went, wait a second. That is just a full-on attack. And there's a gap there. And there's no evidence of flat or any problem back there. Now, later, when she's coming off past the hairpin and down the flat, in fact, she pulled over right near where Lance famously pulled over with his flat and he couldn't fix it. Remember that? She was down kind of in the same spot trying to put CO2 in. Now, I don't know how many other times she may have stopped or pulled over because the coverage goes a little back and forth. You can't see every little detail. So I thought, okay, well, now the narrative should be that there was an attack with 10 miles to go, and that was it. That was the race. That's how I saw it. I didn't see a flat. Now, could Cecily should she not have a flat? Does she bridge back up to Melisa? And then they have a great, epic, almost Keegan, Matt Wilson style sprint at the finish? I suppose that could have still happened. But that attack with 10 miles to go seemed to be it. That seemed to really decide the race, at least the way I saw it. And that, to me, should be the story here of the end of the race, or how it was finally decided. Was there was a decisive attack when both racers were clearly spent beyond belief, and that's what established the gap that won the race.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have eyeballs on the back of my head, so I don't know where she was. I don't know when she flatted. All I know is she was super strong, and it was an absolute dogfight to the top of that climb. And had she been with me up the boulevard, would have been an absolute dogfight.
Yes.
Up the boulevard and to the very finish line. So,
and hats off to Cecily. Like, she never stopped trying. She kept trying to fill that tire, do everything she could to get back, right? She made sure that second place didn't get away from her. I mean, she did everything she could. And yes, flats happen in races, and it can screw up things all kinds of ways. But I think the storytelling needs to be balanced here, and that there was a great attack at the end of that race, and that really looks like what decided the race.
Yeah. And I would say, Melisa, you mentioned in the before the race podcast we did together that Kevens was chunkier than it has been in a while.
Yeah.
It's true.
You each made a gamble on the descent.
It very well could have been me. Very well could have been me.
What an astonishing race.
Before we turn away from the pro race real quick, I know this is going to sound weird, but from an entertainment standpoint, I'm the lone audience member here. From an entertainment standpoint, this course, minus Sugarloaf and minus Powerline, arguably offered a more entertaining pro race. We had Keegan and Matt in a 2-up sprint that Keegan won by, a wheel and a half or something like that. Then we had this race, right, with Melisa and Cecily duking it out, right, mano a mano till the very ends of the race. I don't know. I was really entertained by what went down here. Now, all wins are great. All Leadvilles are great. Whether Keegan's winning by 15 and Melissa's running away from it with, nobody on chasing her down, those are great wins too. But I tell you, from an audience member, this was worth the watch, worth the replay. Even though I knew what happened already, it was worth going back and watching it. So I'm just going to throw that out there. I'm sure people say you're totally out of your mind, Hottie. You've got to have Powerline in there. It's not the race without Powerline. Yeah, it is. You're right. It's not Leadville without Powerline. But this stuff was entertaining.
It was very entertaining,
very
and it was
too.
a different. It was very entertaining, and interestingly, the men's pro race played out much differently than the women's pro race. I mean, if you look at a group, I think I counted maybe the group at Twin Lakes Dam outbound was 35 men together.
Yes.
So both races.
I had 38, but yeah, it was huge. Yeah.
Each race played out in a very unique manner, and I think that goes to show that. What's the saying in boxing? Fighters make fights. Sometimes in football, they say it's not the X's and O's, it's the Jimmies and Joes. It's the racers. The racers make the battle. The racers make the race. In the men's race, maybe Keegan plays it differently and does go for broke and does try to make a bigger gap on Columbine and then hold it. And who knows what could have happened? He didn't make that choice. I think the women's race was dictated in large part by the pileup at the beginning, and I think Cecily's choice, which I'm suspecting was independent of the pileup, to just gun it. And that was her choice, and the other athletes had to react.
Totally.
The other athletes, Sarah, Melisa, Lauren, all of the other pro women had to react to that choice. And, another one of the, everybody has a plan for the fight until they get punched in the nose. And when Cecily makes that attack, that's her punching the rest of the women in the nose. And whether you like it or not, your day has now changed. So I would say it was extraordinarily exciting.
Cecily absolutely blitzed that first climb. She set the QOM up Kevens by a lot.
Oh, did she? Oh,
Yeah.
that's an
Yeah,
interesting stat. I hadn't
absolute
heard
blitz.
that. Wild.
Yeah.
2026 now in the books. I'm going to be honest. I am really hoping for the traditional course for 2027. But, thumbs up and kudos to Lifetime for putting the course that they did together. I think it made for a different and interesting and apples to oranges event. Melisa, what's next?
Very exciting. I am racing in Italy in a couple of weeks. I'm heading over to do Marathon Mountain Bike World Championships.
Cool.
And yeah, it'll be my first world championship. And I'm super excited to give it a go.
We're all super excited for you. What's next for me? Surgery, recovery. Nate, what's next for you?
I always love in the fall trying to take the hard-earned, hard-fought, hard-gained fitness level of Leadville and then apply it in other fun, interesting settings. Some years I've been able to parlay that into traveling to different types of destinations that I might not otherwise get to. I went to Vermont for the Overland Gravel one year. I've done the Mount Washington Hill Climb in New Hampshire. I've done Rebecca's Private Idaho in Sun Valley, Idaho. I'm not sure about that this year, but I'm definitely going to, and we're already several days post-race. I take it to regroup, relax a little bit, take the pressure off, but I'm not going to sit back. I'm going to try to really set some specific race goals. Over the past handful of years, after many years of getting deep in the gravel scene, I've actually really sort of rediscovered my love of traditional cross-country mountain bike racing. There are some great races here in Colorado this fall. So that is what's ahead. But I can never help myself thinking about, no matter how great a Leadville day goes, what I might consider doing different next year. And I'm already excited for that journey ahead.
Nate is already thinking 2027. I love the forward thinking. That is awesome. Hottie, let's finish with you. What's up next?
Oh, I think Mrs. Hottie and I have a gravel race. It'll be a gravel ride, organized gravel ride we're going to do in the Sierra foothills of California, so that'll be fun. By the way, Fatty, just real quick, I did crunch some numbers. It looked like the number of bucklers. It's funny, actually, big buckles were up slightly, or maybe even a little more than slightly, and small buckles were down a little bit this year. So it's kind of some interesting stuff. Now,
I have a theory.
First of all, the only problem with my math is that I don't have an exact number of starters. Chronotrack has not put that number out yet, so I'm working off the number of starters that was promoted by Lifetime, which was 1,700. So normally the race gets a little more than 1,700 starters, anywhere from 1,780 to almost 1,800. This year they were just pushing a number out saying, well, we have 1,700 starters. So it's a little loose on that end, but it just looks, go ahead. What's your theory though?
I think there are a few people who lightened up on their training thinking that the race wasn't going to happen. Then suddenly the race was going to happen again. So people who were kind of on the fence maybe had a rougher time than they would have otherwise because their training had taken a hit when their motivation got pulled out from under them for a little while. The number of people who got big buckles, I think that the 45-minute delta between a big buckle and on a traditional course and this course, I think that was generous on Lifetime's part, and I think that some people got big buckles that probably would not have gotten big buckles on the traditional course.
Okay.
So that's what I'm thinking.
I have seen some math that would potentially back that up, but I have to admit I have not had a chance to fully digest it, so I can't give it the Nate Whitman seal of approval. I will throw one thought out for consideration, particularly with Melisa here. Some portion of going faster would be the course, the metrics, the mileage, the climbing, etc. Some could be dictated by the race tactics or dynamics. I will put out for consideration, and I strongly believe that for at least the top 4 women, which would be Melisa, Cecily, Lauren, and Sarah Lang, a significant portion of basically hour plus faster times came from more training, more effort, more investment, more going all in. I've seen the times that Melisa was throwing up on Strava. I saw Cecily firsthand 3 days of the stage race, not only winning the women's division, but coming within inches of winning the whole damn thing overall, men included. I think she ended up second, right? Do I have that right, Melisa?
Yeah.
In the stage
Yep,
race.
second.
I know
Yeah.
the effort that Sarah Lang puts in climbing and working toward her training plan. And Lauren is the consummate pro and is always going to step up her game to match those around her. So at least on the women's side, I think they came as hard, if not harder than ever. So congrats on that.
I agree. I think as this race evolves and it becomes more relevant and winning it makes a career, I think that more people are figuring out how to show up prepared. And I think that Kate, when she arrived and she showed all of us what's possible, I think I'm not the only one inspired by it. I think there's more girls that are willing to put in what it takes to take down that record.
I remember a couple of decades ago when a good friend of your mom's, Melisa, Jolene Meekum, won the women's category with a 9 hours and 22 minutes finish. Things have definitely changed.
I'm not sure anyone's going to top my 5:58.
That's right. The only woman to ever break 6 hours.
I'll hold on to that one.
What's the discussion now regarding records, by the way, Melisa? Have you heard any
this is
feedback?
a one-off record.
Yeah,
okay.
It's treated different. It has to be.
Assuming we go back to the original course eventually, it's up for grabs.
They were
again.
joking in the post-broadcast interviews about holding 2 records, but it's 2. That's the record for this course. If for whatever reason Leadville 100 ever has to run on that course again, that's the record. So it's not the record for the traditional course, but it is the record for the new course. It is the first and only female time to go sub 6 on that course, and that's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, what a fun conversation. Thank you, Melisa. Once again, XCM National Champ, 24 and 26, Leadville Champ, the only woman to ever break 6 hours at Leadville. We're going to go ahead and say that anyway. And Nate, thank you again, and congratulations on your race.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys.
All right, everyone, an abbreviated season, but a season nonetheless. Season number 9 in the books. We want to thank our guests again, and thank you for listening. We'll see you in 2027, whatever the course might be, at the starting line.